There is a person in your life right now. Maybe it's a coworker who takes credit for things you did. Maybe it's a family member who always has a comment about your choices. Maybe it's a stranger in traffic who cuts you off, and somehow, for the next 40 minutes, they live rent-free inside your head. And the most painful part isn't that they upset you, it's that they didn't even notice. They moved on with their day, and you're the one sitting with the tight chest, the replaying conversation, the quiet fury that you can't quite shake. This isn't a character flaw. This isn't you being too sensitive. This is something much more specific. And once you understand what's actually happening, you'll never be controlled by another person's behavior the same way again. Let's start with something that sounds almost too simple. Anger is never really about what just happened. When someone cuts you off in traffic and you feel your blood pressure spike, the event itself, a car moving into a lane, lasted about 3 seconds. 3 seconds! But your body's response? That can last hours. That mismatch is the first clue. What you're really experiencing is a collision. A collision between what happened and what you believed was supposed to happen. The other driver was supposed to stay in their lane. The coworker was supposed to give credit where it's due. The family member was supposed to be supportive. Your anger is not a reaction to a person. It is a reaction to a violated expectation. And that changes everything. Because expectations live inside you, which means the source of your suffering is also inside you, which means you actually have access to it. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most people, when they hear, "Your reaction is your responsibility," feel something close to anger at that statement. So I'm just supposed to let people walk all over me? So I'm the problem? No, that's not what this means. What it means is that the world contains difficult people, rude people, selfish people, careless people, and that is never going to stop being true. You can spend your entire life waiting for people to behave better, or you can learn something that very few people ever do: how to move through the world without being destabilized by it. There is a difference between feeling anger and being controlled by anger. The first is human. The second is optional. Here is one of the most important things you will ever understand about the human brain. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a real threat and a perceived insult. When someone dismisses your idea in a meeting, your brain fires the same distress signals it would if you were physically in danger. The cortisol spikes, the jaw tightens, the mind starts building a case, collecting evidence, replaying the moment, constructing arguments you'll never actually say out loud. This is called the threat response, and it was designed for survival, not for navigating passive-aggressive coworkers. The problem is, your brain doesn't know that. It treats social pain the same way it treats physical pain. Being excluded from a group chat registers in the same neural region as breaking a bone. So, when people tell you to just let it go, they're asking you to override millions of years of evolutionary wiring with a single sentence. That's why it doesn't work. And that's why this video isn't going to give you that advice. What actually works is something called cognitive reappraisal, not suppression, not pretending you're fine, not telling yourself the other person doesn't matter. Reappraisal. It means changing the story you're telling yourself about what just happened, before the threat response has time to take over. Let's say a friend doesn't reply to your message for 3 days. The automatic story your brain writes: "They're ignoring me. I said something wrong. They're pulling away." The moment that story starts running, your nervous system is already responding to it as if it were fact. You start feeling anxious, or rejected, or angry, and you haven't even talked to the person yet. Reappraisal asks a different question. Not, "Why are they doing this to me?" but, "What are the 5 other possible explanations?" They're overwhelmed at work. They're going through something they haven't told you about. They have a complicated relationship with their phone. They saw the message and meant to reply and forgot. They're struggling. You don't know which one is true. But you know your brain chose the worst possible interpretation and started treating it as reality. Reappraisal is the practice of catching that moment, that split second between the trigger and the story, and asking, is this definitely true? Or is this just the first story that came up? But there's something even deeper than that. Something that almost nobody talks about. The people who bother you the most are not random. Think about the person who irritates you most consistently, the one who gets under your skin in a way others don't. Now, ask yourself honestly, is there something about them that reminds you of something in yourself you haven't fully accepted? The person who brags constantly, are they triggering something in you about your own need for recognition? The person who avoids conflict at all costs, are they reflecting a version of you that you're trying to move away from? The person who is loud and careless, are they doing something you wish you had the freedom to do? This is one of the most confronting ideas in psychology. Carl Jung called it the shadow projection. The qualities we most resist in others are often the qualities we have refused to acknowledge in ourselves. Not always, but often enough to be worth looking at. And when you start seeing your irritation as information, as a pointer back to something worth examining inside you, it completely changes the texture of your anger. It stops being about them, and it starts being about something useful. There is a type of person who seems immune to all of this. You've probably met one. Someone who can have a genuinely frustrating interaction, a difficult customer, a dismissive boss, an unfair criticism, and within a few minutes, they've moved on completely. Not because they're numb, not because they don't care, but because they have something most people were never taught. A stable internal reference point. They don't need the other person to behave well in order to feel okay. Their sense of self doesn't depend on being treated fairly by every person they encounter. When someone is rude to them, they feel the sting for a moment, and then they return to themselves. Like a weighted base that tips and rights itself. People who get chronically bothered by others usually have one thing in common. Their emotional state is externally regulated. Without realizing it, they've handed the dial of their inner world to whoever is in the room with them. A compliment, the dial goes up. A criticism, the dial crashes. An ignored message, the day unravels. The work of emotional mastery is not learning to feel less. It is learning to hold the dial yourself. So what does that actually look like in practice? It starts with a single pause. Not a deep breath, not a mantra, just a pause. The moment you feel the heat rising, the moment the jaw tightens and the mind starts building its case, you stop. Not to suppress it, not to talk yourself out of it. Just to insert 1 second of space between the trigger and the reaction. That 1 second is everything, because in that second, you are no longer a person having a reaction. You are a person watching a reaction. And the watcher is never the one who says things they regret. The watcher is never the one who sends the message at 2 a.m. The watcher is never controlled. From that pause, you can ask, will this matter in 5 years? Is this person worth my nervous system? What do I actually want to happen here? And most of the time, the answer is, I want to move on with my day. I want my peace back. I want to be the kind of person who is not so easily moved. Here's the final thing, and it might be the most important. People do not behave the way they do because of you. The rude cashier is carrying something you can't see. The dismissive parent is passing on what was passed to them. The friend who pulled away is probably in their own spiral, not a spiral you caused. Most difficult behavior is not personal. It feels personal. It lands personally, but it is rarely about you. When you truly internalize that, not just as a nice idea, but as a lived understanding, something quietly shifts. You stop needing people to be different in order for you to be okay. You can be warm to the rude cashier without needing them to respond warmly. You can hold your boundary with the difficult family member without needing them to agree it was fair. You can feel the sting of an unkind comment and not let it rewrite what you know about yourself. This is not indifference. This is not coldness. This is not letting people walk over you. This is freedom. The quiet, unremarkable, daily freedom of a person who has stopped outsourcing their peace to the behavior of other people. You were never supposed to be this available to other people's moods. You were never supposed to carry all of this. And the moment you stop, not perfectly, not all at once, but the moment you start choosing your own stillness over someone else's chaos, everything gets quieter, and you get your life back.